and if people still come in late, we can. It is. This is the mic, Bob. If people straggle in and they miss the very beginning, we can go over that at the. We can flip it for those people as well as if we have a number of people that missed a section. So that way the people that got parking close enough to get here don't have to wait for those that are walking from Charleston, I guess is what I'm hearing. So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. This is an important meeting. It's just kind of a follow-up on a lot of the things that we had talked about over the last year, really. AB204 passed with the marriage license name, a new married name on there. So we're going to talk about, give you an update on that, and then some of the stuff that was in SB 365, and then some of the other things that are just happening in the marriage license or within the wedding community. So as always, I appreciate a question and answer. This isn't really supposed to be like a lecture, but more of a conversation. So it's still hard to hear. Can you guys turn it up in the back just a bit more? Can you guys hear now? It should be fine. Let me see if I can get a little closer to my mouth. Is that better? Let me move the mic a bit. Really? Okay. We are going to get started, but I know that some people. Just a second. Now the jacket's thick. Can you hear now, or is it too far away from my mouth? No? Yes? Let's see if this one will work. Can you hear me now? No. Okay. On my shirt. Sorry about that. It seemed like it was good when we did a mic check. Can you hear now, or is that too? That's good? Everybody can hear? Okay. When we scheduled this, we did not realize that the health fair would be the same day, and so that is why some people are having to park literally all the way down to Charleston. So for people that show up late, we'll go over the beginning of the slides again, but for the people that have been here for a while, we want to get started anyway so that you can go when you're ready to go. Can you hear it? You're coming in perfectly loud over there. Do you want me to take that off? Or? I think it's okay now. Yeah. Sorry about that. So there's a lot of things to cover, some things that happened legislatively that we want to give you updates on how we're implementing, some things that are not legislative but are happening within the Marriage License Bureau, or things that are happening within the community. So let's get started. Everybody, you still can't hear, Charlotte? Let me turn this one off and take a mic. Is this better? Oh, yeah. Even I can tell the difference. Okay, so this is the agenda. We're going to cover, the first thing is I forget how bad my vision is. So here, over on this side of the screen, not that I don't love you over there, but Rock and Roll Marathon, and then we'll cover the year-to-date marriage licenses issued, the new married name implementation, 5-year renewal, efficient training, ID cards, contact information from you guys, which is really important, handbiller update, brochure rack, and then unlicensed efficient's fine. So if you have any questions along the way, just let us know. We have 2 mics. This is recorded, and we try to put it on the clerk's page so that people that weren't able to attend can access it later. And so make sure that you wait till you get a mic, because otherwise people don't know what was said. So the Rock and Roll Marathon is going to be November 11th and 12th again, like it was last year. We were able to knock heads with them enough to get them to move the route. They had scheduled it again in front of the Marriage License Bureau, and we complained loudly and repeatedly, and so we got them to move it then away from 3rd and over to Casino Drive. So now that won't be blocked, which is great. And then we are going to be able to send you out this map. Expect to email within the next day or so. And on the map, it's for you to use for your customers so that they know how to get in, because a lot of the streets are blocked. So have them come on 15, go on Charleston, and then go down 3rd, and then they should be able to park in the county parking lot. Do you guys all know where that is? So we'll send you that map. Any questions about that? It's not that different than last year, but it should be better. There's also some hard copies out there if you don't have an email address, because we are going to send this through email. Yeah. Next is year-to-date statistics breakdown. The last couple weeks have been great, but I have to say we're still not quite even. Last year we were down 327 for the year from 2015 to 2016. Last month we were down 400, and then that means for the year we're down 1,200 still. So I know that that's bread and butter for you guys. There's a lot of things coming up. We're going to try to work on that, but you know, it is what it is, and we all need to be out there promoting weddings and making sure your friends tell you their kids to get married here and to tell their friends to come here to get married. There's a lot of things the community can do to be the best advocate for Las Vegas as the best place in the world to get married. So Assembly Bill 204 is the one where we were told that we need to put the new married, allow couples to put the new married name on their wedding certificate. Excuse me. So that sounds like an easy thing, but what it means is that we have to change all our forms and all our databases and all those things so that we can accept it. We've been working with the vendor, and we do think that we're going to be on track. We're trying to get a draft from them by November 1st and be able to give you guys the new forms. What we've tried to do, it actually gave us a great opportunity, and I'm jumping ahead of my slide here. So that what the law says is that they have to keep their first name. They can use as a middle name a number of different names that exist, either theirs or their spouses. And for the last name, again, theirs or their spouses. And we have a matrix coming up that will really help address that. And that will be on the name of the marriage license when you guys get it, on the marriage certificate when you get it. So the options are the current last name, the middle name can be either the current middle name, the current last name of the applicant, the name given at birth, so that if you changed your name and you want to go back to your maiden name, you can do that. Hyphenated combination of the current middle name or current last name, hyphenated combination of the current middle and current last name given at birth or of either applicant. That's a lot of choices there. That's the law, so we have to comply with the law. The last name then, so that's just the middle name. The last name can be the current last name of either applicant, the last name of either applicant given at birth, or a hyphenated combination of the potential last names. That is a lot to choose from, and one of the main concerns when we were talking to the legislature was that we didn't want to become the name expert. We didn't want the Marriage License Bureau to become the name expert, so that we added, 2 to 10 minutes per couple deciding what their name is. And so that's what we have really tried to address in this. And you will have access to this as well. This is not going to be available yet, but what we did, and this is being programmed into our system as we speak, this is an actual matrix that will be on the new online application. And so when they type in their first and last and middle name or whatever they type in, then only those names will be available in the construction that the legislature said it could be. So instead of you having to help figure that out or them having to figure it out, they can just go on to this matrix and we will give them all their possibilities. And from there, they'll have to pick which ones they want. So we would like you to use this as well if you're helping your couples figure out their new name. They do not have to do this. If they choose not to do it, they can still change their name in the same way they always did.
even if they do choose this, they still have to go through the same process, which is the Social Security, the DMV, the passport. So it doesn't eliminate any of those steps. What this would do is require them to use the name that they chose at their marriage license. They would have to ask for an amendment, pay for an amendment if they wanted to make a modification after we issue the marriage license. So Carl's going to kind of walk you through. He's the one that created this matrix and tried to simplify it. What we're trying to do is make it easier for the couple, easier for you to be an advisor to the couple if that's what you are, and make sure that they can't pick a name that is not acceptable either through the state legislature or through the Social Security or DMV. So we have reached out to the National Social Security Office, the state DMV, and the State Department for passports, and made sure that we are not doing anything that will be tossed back later. And that was our main concern, is that we didn't want to say, okay, yes, you can have this name, and then they go on the next step and they go, no, you can't have that name, well, you're crazy. So we're working with them. We have a paper from them that we will be putting on, issuing out with the package that we give with the license, so that they know the next steps and the proper steps. We don't have that quite done yet, but you will have access to that as well. And now Carl's going to really work with you and show you how this matrix works. It will be on the online pre-application, so you will have access to that.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Carl Bates. I work for Lynn. I manage the Marriage Bureau. And as she indicated, you guys won't have to worry about the complexities of using an Excel spreadsheet like we have up here, but we don't have the online pre-app quite coded yet to be able to provide this functionality. So what we're showing you is kind of how it's going to work. So when an applicant will go to our site and fill out a pre-app and they put in their first name, middle name, last name, birth name, there'll be drop-downs of all the different combinations of things that they can pick for their new middle name and their new last name. So as an example, currently we have in there Smith, and you can see all of the different possible name combinations in row 17 down. If you fill in all these fields, there's 330 possible combinations for names. Nobody's going to remember that. And we can't afford to have customers come up to our windows and sit there and say, what are my choices? So, and for you guys as well when you're helping them, obviously. So the logic behind here, currently right now you see what's there. So the first line, we've got Jane Rachel Smith, and her birth name is Jones. Ashley, if you go ahead and just change the last name to Smith and then just tab out. Now, if you watch these values down here at the bottom, you'll see it change to Bell. You'll see Bell in there a few different times all over the place. So it'll be kind of real time. They'll go in line, they'll type their different name options, and then the drop downs will readjust and show them what they can choose. If you click at that little arrow next to the middle name in the middle, so that does a pop-up, and if you just scroll through that little list, those are, you get maybe about 14 or 16 different unique middle name combinations. So of the 330, there's really only about 14 or 15 that you can really choose from that are unique. So this is what the customer would be doing. They'd be selecting one of these name options, which of course includes what their current name option is if they don't want to choose a new one. And if they don't want to choose a new one, then obviously they stay with what they have. Party one can change their name if they want. They can change just their middle name. They can change just their last name. They don't have to change anything. Party two can do exactly the same thing. They can wind up with two totally separate different names. It's completely up to them. You can cancel that and go to the last name one as well. You don't have to change last name.
They won't see this matrix that you see. All they'll do is see an arrow down where they're going to get their choices. This is the logic behind it so that you guys can see, but they won't see that, so it won't be that confusing.
Yeah, and we'll take you to, I don't know if you're familiar with our MLIC.Vegas page, which is where the pre-app is online. We'll take you to that a little bit later in the presentation and kind of show you where these fields are going to be and where the drop-downs will appear. She clicked the last name drop-down, very similar to the last name. You wind up with, again, about 14 to 16 different possible last name options to choose. Sure.
If you are the one helping your couple make this decision, and they don't like their choices, you know, the only way to modify that would be to change the choices in the white boxes that they type in. So say they don't like their last name, they want their middle name, but it doesn't show, they can stick that up there. Now, the Marriage License Bureau will only ID them with the regular ID that we always have. So I think I've told you this before. My driver's license says Lynn Goya, so we would not let them put Marie on there unless they brought something that showed the Marie. If they want to modify, then we would recommend don't make a modification on your marriage license. Wait, because you can still take your birth certificate, still go to the Social Security and DMV, which you will have to do anyway, and so just don't make a modification on the marriage license. So if they don't have the ID with them that shows that name, we will make them change the name to the name that their ID shows, because that's our legal obligation, is to make sure that they are who they say they are and that their name is the same. So that might be a little bit confusing to couples, but we won't be able to, unless they bring all the ID, we won't be able to let them use those names. But that doesn't mean that they can't use those names ultimately. Like if I went to Social Security with my birth certificate that showed Marie on it, they would accept that. And we talked to the State Department, they will accept that as long as you show that chain of, you know, name.
We have a lot of people standing in the back here. If you have an empty seat next to you, if you could raise your hand.
There's lots of empty seats down here in the middle, all over down there. So Lynn pointed out we're going to have a sheet. It's going to be an infographic that's kind of visual in nature, and talking with the DMV and the Social Security Administration, Passport Agency. The DMV came up with a draft of an infographic that'll be really helpful for couples to kind of look at the whole flow of getting their marriage license, getting married, and how they change their name. So of course we'll put that online. You guys will have access to it, and it'll be a good little tool to show the couples, to help them understand what they do and how they change their name. Now, we've got some very simple names up here in this matrix. There are people that have two middle names, sometimes with a hyphen, sometimes with a space. I can tell you that those name combinations will get really messy. So again, when we have this online, you'll have the ability to work with the couples. They'll have the ability to go online and look at this. If they submit the pre-app with their name choices a certain way, that doesn't mean that they're locked into it. We really don't want them coming into the Marriage Bureau and saying, oh, you know, I really wasn't sure about that. What are my other options? Can I change it? We do have a tool that will be able to help them and say, here's your name options. You can take a window pass and go figure it out and come back to the window. So we really want couples, we really want you guys to work with the couples to try to help them figure out what they want their name to be, and if it doesn't work for them, the best thing we can tell you is don't change your name with us, wait and do it the way you normally would. Okay? You can.
Any questions on that?
Let's get a microphone. Hang on one sec. Ginny, there's another one down front.
Mic's on.
Thank you. Just curious, was this bill initiated from your office, or did some legislator just decide to make these changes?
No.
Excuse me? Excuse me?
Blank, no, it did not come from my office.
Where did it originate from?
An assemblywoman up north.
Up north.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
It was not Tick Seyerbloom either. He's a senator. Questions?
Yeah, Lynn. Before my question, for the person that just asked the previous question, as a member of the Homeland Security Commission, you were finding that the government, local, state, national, is very, very cautious with names, with accuracy of names, and there is a reason why some of these things are being done, not just to complicate it. My question is, we know that if we can direct people to do it online, they've got the time, they are able to do it. Are you going to be able to budget to have more people at the Marriage Bureau to make sure that there are more windows open during those times when there's going to be such a long line? That's my question.
We had requested additional staff to help address this, and we were not allocated additional staff. So we will try, as always, to move people around to make the lines as short as possible, because we know that that's money in your pockets, especially those that send limos and those kind of things, but we do not have any additional staff, no.
Good morning, and thank you for hosting this meeting. So the only way that this is going to work, though, is if they have proper ID, because if they fill this form out and say, oh, I'd like the last name Jones Smith, if they don't have something that says my last name is Jones Smith, then it's a moot point, right? Or it doesn't work, or
Correct, that's correct.
Okay.
We're still gonna, everything that you've probably been telling your couples for years about what names, what ID they need, we still take all that same ID. There was no changes in what ID was required. So we still take all those names and we will only take names that are shown on their ID. What I didn't want to happen is somebody says, again, like myself, I want to put Lynn Marie Goya down. Our office will not take that. We'll only do Lynn Goya. They would have to make that modification someplace else because my ID says Lynn Goya, unless they brought their birth certificate. What I didn't want our office to be doing is saying, okay, you don't have your birth certificate, go back home to France and get your birth certificate. So that was the one thing we fought hard for, is that we do not have to take any ID other than what we normally and have traditionally taken, but that does mean that it's that what we accept is restricted to what they show us. So that's correct.
Lynn, right here.
Dolly, raise your hand. There you go.
Since we have mentioned about hyphenated names, a couple of months ago, a client was sent home, and they're from overseas, because one of your clerks rejected the application because his ID had a hyphen. It's a hyphenated name. And over 30 years, I've been doing weddings. I've never seen one. There's nothing I can do. I even called your office. They said there's nothing we can do because we're not accepting hyphenated name. I was shocked. It really was.
Yeah, you'd have to let's talk privately about that specific one. That is not a policy.
Okay.
As long as their ID has the name that they show, that would be acceptable ID.
I thought so. Now we discuss hyphenated name, that's acceptable
You've had someone
here.
reject for a hyphenated name? Oh, no, you've passed through a hyphenated name. Yeah, and something like that, let us know so that we can follow up with that. Because I'm really surprised. As long as the ID shows that, that would be okay.
Thank you.
What it does, the law does not allow you to delete your hyphen. So on some of the people that have, currently a hyphenated name, and then they want to add their new married name to it, they would have to keep the whole hyphenated name, which I know is not traditional in some cultures, but there was no way, we looked at it, there was no way.
I use a hyphenated name.
Yeah, there was no way we could see that we could allow them to do it with this law.
A question from here too. How did this get started? How this whole thing got started?
It came from a woman, an assemblywoman, Tolles, up north, and I guess someone brought it to her attention that they had a difficult time changing their name during her campaign, and so this was one of the things she wanted to accomplish. Any other questions on this particular thing? Okay.
Hi, my question is,
Closer, Bart.
now that they are able to change their name in advance, is on the marriage certificate itself, that is going to reflect the new name? For example, Bart Donovan marries Patricia Day.
We'll show you all that in a few minutes.
That's coming up. We'll
All
show
right,
you some
never mind.
examples. Anything else? Yeah, I can't see either.
Do you have an actual date that this is going to be implemented?
January 1.
Oh, January 1.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just some more showing you the different examples. But again, there'll be a drop-down menu once they type their name in, so they won't see this background. They'll just see the drop-down menu for what they have, what options they have. This is going to be changing our affidavit, our license, our certificate, and our keepsake. And so because we had to modify everything, we kind of looked back and said, you know, do we like how these things look now? And some of it really was not that attractive. It was still being printed as if it was being typed on a typewriter, so there was lines for you to follow, and we thought we don't need that anymore. And so we are modifying the forms. They should be actually much simpler and cleaner, much more things that we will be able to put on there so that it will look a lot more attractive. And then the keepsake, we were going, why is it this odd shape? So it's going to be the same shape as the actual certificate. So for those of you that give them a framed copy or something like that, it will be much easier for you guys to use this. So the things that will change, Carl, why don't you go through this part again too?
Carl's been doing it all, so.
Okay, so on the marriage license itself, which is obviously the document that you guys wind up keeping, at the top there, what's going to change is you're going to see the current name. That's their name they come into our office with. All right, underneath that, you're going to see their birth last name. So we're going to require that field now on the application. And if it's the same as what it currently is, well, it's the same. But if somebody had a different name at birth, then they would put that in. And then you have your middle name after marriage, and then you have your last name after marriage, and then your full name after marriage. So all that name information will be on the license itself, and it's important that we break that down into the middle and last name so that we can see that those name elements adhere to what the law is telling us are the only options that can be chosen. Go ahead and skip to the next slide, please. All right, so on the marriage certificate, this is like Lynn said, this has been changed a little bit. All the information now is at the top that you guys are going to fill in. Underneath that, in that red square, the red square won't be there, but I'm just trying to highlight there, these are the names of the couple. So the very first one there, I can't even read that from here, says John Quincy Public of Las Vegas, Nevada, born 4/1/1987, Ann. Well, what that means is John Quincy Public didn't change his name. He's using the exact same name before marriage as he is after marriage. In the example that's after that, Sally Marie Smith of Los Angeles, California, born whatever, who wishes to use the name Sally Marie Smith Public after marriage. This is the indicator that she's chosen to use a different married name. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, please. No, there's one in there. You can back up one. I thought there was another one in there that had different examples. But as I mentioned earlier, either party can change their name. They can have two totally different names. They don't have to change their name. So you might see this document like it is there, where in this case John changed his name and Sally, or he didn't and Sally did, or you might see it where John did and Sally didn't, or they both did, or they both didn't. So various different combinations, but that's how you'll know. And you'll also see that on the license in those individual name fields. Go ahead and go to the next one. So Lynn talked about the keepsake. The keepsake, it's a pretty expensive form for us to have to print the way it currently is, the way it is with the perf in it and the oddball size. So we kind of looked at what can we do to make the keepsake more cost efficient and a little bit easier for you guys and for us to manage. So we went to a full page. Now if you notice at the top where the lines are in the names, exactly the same as the certificate. You guys only have to come up with one printing template or one stamp now. You're not going to have to do two different things, one for the certificate and one for the keepsake. So if you have a Word template where you fill this out with, you can use it for both now. You won't have to have two different ways of doing it. So hopefully that helps. Again, full 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, same exact template, border, color seal, foil seal, what have you. There's no printing on the back whatsoever. Everything is on the front. And everything that's in black on that, we print in our office. So now it's just a plain stock that comes into it. So if we have to over time, we can change what's on there.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Hi. So a lot of us, I know, have certificate holders that we give the keepsake in, and it's all landscape. It does not fit a 8.5 by 11 template. I can bring one over to you guys. I know we all have a lot of the same printers. So we're gonna have to get all new certificate holders for this. Is there no? Right now, because you cut off that top part, like
Right.
it unhinges. So
It actually is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but actually is a portrait. It's just like this, but a shorter sheet, because obviously you fold and remove the perf at the top.
Right.
So the width is exactly the same as what we give you today. This can be fed into a printer just like a normal piece of paper. So just like your certificate, you'll have the exact same template to do the keepsake.
no, that's not.
You have individual holders, like a frame to put it in? Is that what you're talking
Yes,
about?
we have like every chapel I know probably has a logoed like certificate holder, and so you cut off that perforation and you put it in there, and it fits the official certificate beautifully. So those, and it's a smaller. It's not 8.5 by 11 size.
So you would like, you prefer the existing size going forward? Because I was told that that was actually really expensive for you guys to, because it's such an odd size. We could probably, we could probably do it horizontal if that makes a difference. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I guess we'd all have to get quotes on it, so I don't know, but.
Right, and I think the problem a lot of other chapels are going to have is that we stocked up on those landscape folders that are now going to be worthless. I think the big question is, when is this going to be implemented? How long do we have to get rid of our frames until the portrait one comes out?
This would be implemented on January 1. So that's, again, why we're trying to tell people ahead of time. I mean, this is probably something that we could still modify, maybe. Yeah. It's just everything we do with the vendor, yeah, it's all the vendor does all this. We don't, we have to tell them what we want, and then they do what we agree on. So I would need specifics on what you, because I was told that the keepsake size that we have is actually expensive to purchase the frames for and difficult, so that something like this would actually be a benefit to you. Is that, you're telling me no? And think long term too, not just the next 6 months, but long term, wouldn't this be a better size? Yeah, I mean, really, it was designed to try to make it better for you. So, Amy, you're saying you specifically would not think that that was better?
I don't know. I wasn't sure of the timeline or anything.
It's January.
So it looks really nice.
Yeah, well, we took about a lot of the garbage out, just like the lines and things. We actually are not requiring you to re-sign things multiple times like you do on the current ones. So hopefully, and that actually this is the keepsakes I'm talking about.
Can I just make a comment on that? This is just a matter of opinion. One of the things that makes the keepsake certificate unique is that it's very different than all the other items of paperwork. In my opinion, that one looks far more official, and so I'm concerned that people would be confused that that's an official document when in fact it is not. It is a keepsake because it's very similar to the rest of the documents, especially now going all the same direction. Just an opinion.
I think there's always been some confusion. Let's see, this is the actual one. And it does say marriage certificate keepsake. We can make keepsake bigger. So raise your hands if remember, this is not going to be a 5, or even a 5-month or 10-month. This is going to be going forward over a number of years. Would this be a benefit to be in this shape? Raise your hands if it would be a benefit over time. Okay, so raise your hands if you think that it would be a detriment over time with this shape. So it seems.
Hey. Lynn?
Yes.
I have one comment. It has to do with the inventory that the various facilities have regarding their current folders that they use, their presentation folders. The thought is that I think this would be, in the long run, better, and the current folders could possibly be converted for use for a photograph for the couple. So you're still making use of your back inventory.
And
I
that is why
understand
we're
that a lot
reaching
of
out
it-
to you before this is even finalized, because we want to give you as much notice as possible so that you are aware of this timeline and these changes. So, you know, I think we met a couple months ago and said that we would make some modifications. So we are trying to give you as much notice as possible on, especially because we do know that you guys have stamps or programs or things that you use that need to know what the size is. We don't have the final specs on this yet. We won't get it till we get it back from the vendor. But if there's a major change, it sounded like the majority really felt that this was a benefit. We can do, I think maybe putting keepsake bigger is not inappropriate at all. Yeah, but it does look like most people think keeping this would be the appropriate shape. Okay.
Going back to the name change situation, how does this relate to the real ID?
Raise your hand, because this just comes like
raising
audio,
hand.
so I have no idea where direction it's coming from.
How is this going to relate to real ID, and do you have an obligation to advise the couple that they have to deal with the real ID situation, because their real ID from their birth to now is going to be different if they change their names?
Well, that's why we reached out to DMV as well, and we're getting guidance from them that as long as we're doing what we just said, that would fit with them. Now, if like my middle name that I don't have on my driver's license currently, and I will have to get it for my real ID, which I didn't get, you would have to take that document that shows where that name came from. So you'd have to take your birth certificate or your marriage license from your previous marriage or something that shows the chain of your name, just like, you know, the provenance basically of your name.
And you will advise the people accordingly?
We're going to have a printout actually that gives them that information,
you.
and that's being developed by the DMV so that we
Okay.
can make sure that they
Thank
are
you.
doing whatever DMV wants them to do. Oh, it's a cane, okay.
Lynn?
You have to raise your hand, because again, the sound just comes in general.
On the inventory question that was made about the folders that are already purchased and everything, just a request to you, I'm not sure about the printers that other chapels use, but our printer has about a 7-week turnaround as far as us ordering a folder. So if you could get that finalized, just tell us it's finalized as soon as possible. That would be greatly appreciated.
We're hoping to get no later than November 1st, and hopefully earlier. And as soon as we get that, we're going to send out by email. We probably won't do a mailing on that, but we will send out by email a copy of the document with actual specs on it, you know, like 2.5 inch, not 2.5, but, you know, 1/4 inch, whatever the specs are, so that you can, you know, make the adaptations that you need to make. So we're hoping that no later than November 1st. Because we do have a January 1 implementation deadline.
I just wanted to go back to your question about the DMV. The DMV, there was another bill that was passed this year that affects the DMV with names for them. Didn't coincide with the bill for us. So when people get a driver's license or state ID in Nevada, they have different name options than they do with us getting a license. For example, they can choose adoptive parents' names. We don't have that in our bill. So that's why it's very important that we reached out to the DMV and SSA and coordinated all this. So they're aware what we're doing, we're aware what they're doing, and we're working together on it. So it might be confusing for some of your couples. You can always reach out to our office to ask questions about it. We can only obviously give you advice or tell you based upon what we can do with the licenses. They may have to reach out to the DMV and get direction from them if they have any concern about their names as far as what they're going to be allowed to do. Okay?
Question?
Oh, I'm sorry. With the sound, you just can't have, you have no directional anymore. Yeah.
Okay, so for those couples that want to use just one word as their name, that just won't be allowed in this situation?
There's no legislation that says that that would be appropriate. They can use it as their non-legal name, but Cher can't just be Cher for us. Well, unless she doesn't have a name. We didn't really address if you don't have a name, but I'm sure she was born with a name, so she would have to have some kind of a name. And then remember, if there's any concern, the best advice is this is not mandatory. So you do not have to fill this out. You do not have to select a new married name in this venue, which is your marriage license. So if there's any concern or question, or they are not positive that they want to go with this, or they think they might change their mind, or for any reason, we have no problem with them not selecting anything. We have to provide them the option. That's the law, is that we provide them the option. Amy? Yes, they will do that in the pre-application, which takes us to the next slide.
May I ask something real quick? Over here. Okie dokie. So this all makes sense for American couples. Me, for example, I have mostly European couples. In Europe, we have different name laws, so to speak. Every country has a different name law. This is going to be an issue if the marriage license and the marriage certificate is going to reflect something they think they can use. Now the marriage certificate is issued, they go back home, they want to legalize it at home, and they're saying, no, 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 this is not what is legal here. So is there going to be an option maybe when they do the pre-application, I am not American, check here, and you don't even have those choices?
No, but there will be an option for them to just not make you do not have to make a choice, even out of state. I mean, how do I know what Iowa law is, whether the Iowa law will agree with what Nevada law is? If there's any question, I would just advise them to go through the traditional process of changing their name and not put anything on the marriage license. They do not have to choose anything.
Can that be kind of emphasized on the pre-application? Because I
Yes,
guarantee
it
you
will be.
90% of the couples will go, oh, how cool. Well, I want this and I want that. And they then might not be fluent in English, so they're thinking, oh, I'm just going to fill out whatever it says. And that's going to lead to massive problems down the road.
I agree with that, which is one of the reasons why we're really reaching out to you, and it's going to impact your not relationship with your couple, but you need to take some leadership on this as well, so that we don't end up doing something that they don't want, and then they have to pay for an amendment to get it fixed. I think we're the only county that is going to allow them to make an amendment later, after they get their license issued, and if they do make an amendment, there will be a cost to that, but at least we're allowing it. The other counties, I don't think, are even going to offer amendments, so whatever they choose on that day is the name they choose. So I encourage you to work with your couples on this issue, which is very important. I think that you guys know what the law is as well, so that you can advise them that if there's any question, just don't fill it out. You don't really lose anything by not filling a new name out here, because you still have to take your ID with you to Social Security and DMV and the State Department for your passport. Yes. Yes, and we are, again, we're trying to move everyone to the pre-application. That's part of this process for us. Everyone needs to do it online, so that they can look at this and have the matrix and have that information. Anybody that's using old forms, that they made some copies, some paper copies for people to fill out, we will not accept those. We will no longer accept those. So let everyone know that the paper copies that you give to your couples will no longer be accepted from the Marriage License Bureau. We really want them to go and do the online pre-application, so they have the current information and they are most up to date.
Question.
Okay.
Is there, if a couple does not choose to change their names, they leave them just the way they are, is there some kind of disadvantage or advantage when they go to the DMV or they go to the Social Security office? Is there some advantage to having this on the marriage certificate when they go to either one of those two offices to make their new name?
There's no advantage for women because women have always been able to change their name. I think this was to address men being able to change their names more easily, but we have talked to Social Security and DMV, and they are now allowing men to use their marriage license, their existing marriage license, to change their name if they want to. So as far as I understand, there really is not a lot of legal advantage. Now, and that's for Nevada. If they are in another state, you know, we can't know all 50 state laws. That's part of the problem. Or if they go to another country, we can't know all the other country laws. So, you know, they need to look at their state laws. And a lot of states are doing these name changes. They're not all the same list of options that we had. It would be nice if it was like one, but it's not. So if there's any question, I would, if they're from another state and they're a man and they want to take, you know, their spouse's middle name, I would ask them to, you know, check with their DMV whether that would be okay if they show it on the driver. Would that give them, you know, benefit if they show it on their marriage license? So I would have them, or you know, find out specifically for that couple. For women, I don't see any advantage because we've always been able to change our names. So even two women getting married, they can both change their names using their marriage license. So the only advantage I think might be to men who want to make a modification to their name. Yeah, that's way beyond what the Marriage License Bureau can deal with. We just want them legally married. So I think there was a question here.
Yes, you said everybody's going to have to do this online. How will that affect your branch in Laughlin?
Well, the branch in Laughlin, I mean, you can go online through a cell phone or anything like that. We are going to be putting kiosks in the Marriage License Bureau. We would not have one in Henderson or Laughlin at this time. We're going to try, but it's a budget issue as much as anything.
Okay, thank you.
But again, they can go online through a computer. It doesn't have to, and ahead of time, at home, right? The pre-application can be filled out up to a year ahead of time. So we encourage them to do that.
Excuse me, but at this time, a license is good for an entire year. I have people who have already purchased their paperwork that's in my possession, holding it for them, and not planning to be married until 2018 before it's expired. How are they affected by this?
So the law says that we have to implement this to the marriage license by January 1, 2018. So if you got a license on December 30th, 2017, it would be with existing laws. So the law isn't implemented until January 1. So any license that's issued would be good for the term of its issuance. And as I said, now you can go online a year in advance for the pre-application. That means you have a year to come to the Marriage License Bureau to get your license, and then of course the license is good for a year. So this is almost a 2-year span. We upgraded the system, and now we have the ability to keep it up to a year. Yeah. Bart.
I know this is after the fact, and it's probably too late, but in the future, I hate to be pessimistic, but I think this is an awful, terrible bill for many reasons. And I don't know, I missed a couple of the meetings, so I don't know if the officiants were made aware of AB204 when you first learned of it, but I think that this is the kind of bill that all of us should get together and oppose. And I think that many of us should contact the person who introduced this bill and make them aware of some of the the effects of this, the negative effects. It's not good.
Yeah, I think I brought it up during the legislative session, but this is a learning curve for me too. This is the first one where I was in office, and I've learned I need to be a little bit more proactive about all of the wedding bills. I will do better next time, but if you weren't aware, I cannot remember when I first brought it to your attention. If I didn't bring it early enough, I apologize. You can also go on the legislature and do your own bill tracking, and that's probably not not a bad idea. But if I really should have made you guys aware if I didn't do it enough ahead of time, and I do apologize.
Yeah, Lynn, I was just wondering if you've sent a big thank you note to the sponsor of this bill.
Thank you. I didn't think of that.
Quick question. I get a lot of folks that are from like Reno and Tonopah. Is there going to be consistency between the counties in Nevada with the licenses?
We by far issue the most licenses, and so we just had a state clerks meeting. I gave them what I have, and we are going to be sharing for free some of the same tools. Some of them just don't have the software. They don't have, some of these counties are very small. So the bill is, they have to do the same thing, but whether they're able to do, I think this matrix, frankly, is just brilliant. Thank you, Carl, because I think this will make it easier for people to sort through the nonsense to say, here are the names I can get, and it won't impact our clerks too much, I hope, because it will be done ahead of time. So the bill is a state bill, but whether they have the tools that Clerk is luxurious enough to have, I'm not sure.
For the people who missed previous meetings and we're trying to enhance the communication between not only officiants, but with wedding planners and with everybody who's involved with a wedding. One of the reasons why the Las Vegas Wedding Chamber of Commerce was established was to increase the amount of communication that is going on. That is one of the priorities for 2018, to have an accurate database, because one of the reasons why, something else you're going to begin to talk about later on in this agenda, is the accuracy of who is a wedding officiant, who isn't a wedding officiant, the accuracy of who is licensed, who's not licensed, etc. All I can say is, for those of you who are as busy as I think everybody in this room is, one of the things that you may want to consider is joining the Las Vegas Wedding Chamber of Commerce, because it is a priority, especially with the new bills that are going to be coming up in 2018, the communication. It's another source of you to be aware of what's going on.
So, thank you, Bob. So everyone is going to be going online. We will have paper applications only if someone has like a disability or something like that. I know that a lot of people have, made copies of the application. Some of those are no longer accurate. So please just shred all the old applications. So down at the bottom, so what we have done, I think most of you guys know this, we've showed it a number of times, but go to mlic.vegas. Again, this is to make it easier for you to communicate with your couples on how to get to the marriage license application, right? The online pre-application. So instead of going to clarkcountynv.gov/clerk/marriage license application, that's really hard to get to, and it's hard to say on the phone. mlic.vegas, this is the clerk's page, takes you here, want to get married, you click on that button, and then there's the pre-application. This is the existing pre-application, but you'll be able to go on that. They don't have to finish filling it out. That will have that matrix on it by January 1, so they can just play with that and never file it. If they file it and they change their mind, because we don't really have a, now they can just do a different one if they change their mind. They can't go in and modify it once they hit submit, but they can just go make a new one. And just when they come in, make sure they bring the one that, or the number from the one that they want to use. So if they
fill it out, and then a month later go, oh my goodness, I don't want to do that. And you can say, just fill out another one, take the new number, that will just be discarded. And we have enough bandwidth now that we don't have to worry about that. So this is, again, for you guys, make sure they go to the online application, they know how to find it, they can play with their name as long as they want, and then finish filling it out when they're ready. And so it's marriage license, MLIC.Vegas. Yeah, and then I've showed this to you before, but a number of you may not have seen it. So we also developed a QR code that goes straight to the MLIC.Vegas. If you go on the Clark County Clerk's site, on the Officiant's page, you scroll down all the way to the bottom, and it says QR code, and you can print that QR code and put it on your literature. So it makes it easy for the couples, again, to go to that QR code, and that will send them to the to MLIC.Vegas page. And that way they can easily access the online pre-application. Any questions about that? And so we're developing this for you guys, a tool for you guys to make it easier for you to communicate with your couples.
Just real quick, because you see the first bullet up there, it says 6 kiosk computers in the Marriage Bureau lobby. So the Marriage Bureau lobby is going to change a little bit. So when you walk in the main doors, you have the counter right in front of you. That's where the baskets are with the forms. Those will go away. The counter will be there until we can get it taken out, but unfortunately that will stay. If you come in the doors and you go immediately to your right, we have 2 marriage certificate kiosks there right now where people can get their certified copy of their marriage certificate. Those will be moved. So where our chairs are against the far wall, the west wall, those are where the marriage certificate kiosks are going to be, and we're going to have 6 computers set up on the wall where the certificate kiosks are currently. So customers would come in, go to the right, fill out, we'll have a slightly different version of this form, but pretty much the same thing. That's where they'll do their application, and then they'll just, once it's submitted, they'll just turn right around and get in line.
Any questions about that? So again, the paper application, we are not going to accept those. We're not going to put them out, but if there's some reason a person cannot use a kiosk and doesn't have someone to help them, then that would be the only time we would use a paper application. We don't want you guys having them bring it in. We will send them to the kiosk to fill out their application anyway. So again, make sure that you, that you communicate that information. And make sure, I really depend that we obviously have more than the number of officiants and chapel owners than have come today. I really depending on you guys to talk to each other and communicate this information to those that weren't able to make it today.
So from at home, when you fill it out online from your computer, once you submit, it goes to a submission or a confirmation page, and you get a number, and it gives you all the locations of where you can go get your license, the days and the hours of operation. They can print that page. The page that has all their information on it, once it's submitted, it's gone. So unless they're on that page before they click submit, they could print that page. In our lobby, they won't have that ability. There won't be any printers.
Raise your hand. Okay, so the timeline, we probably should have put this first because everybody's been asking, but November, December, we're really trying to get the vendor to get us this basic information by November 1 so that we can give you guys, especially that any kind of documentation, any kind of changes that you need to implement. That gives us November, December to do all the testing. The law says we need to be ready to run by rock and roll by January 1. So the new forms will be released to the chapels and Officiant as soon as we get it done. If it's before November 1, we'll let you know. We will be doing this by email. So make sure that you guys have given us your email. If you do not have an email or access to an email, just let us know that. And again, the forms will have the specs on it, so in case your printer prints slightly different than my printer, it will be in that information. And the implementation date is January 1, 2018.
Any other questions on the marriage license or the forms? Because we'll go on to some of the other things that are more fun. Oh, one more question, I think.
Sorry, I got to back up just a second to the lady whose most of her clients are overseas. Is there a process for fixing their certificate if they have indeed filled it out with names that are not working with the laws that they reside in?
We are going to offer an amendment process. There will be a fee for it, but anyone that really wants to change what name that they gave themselves during the marriage license issuance will have an ability to change their name.
And that will be implemented at the same time as
Yes.
thank you.
It'll all go all January 1. Yeah. If they haven't picked up their license, all they have to do is do a different pre-app. There's no cost to that. If they've done it and they show up and have changed their mind, they can change their mind up to the time when they get the license issued, right? So they can just do a different application, no problem. $74.50. Well, that's the fee for any amendment, because that's the fee. We have to refile the certificate, we have to modify the license, we have to change our database. So, we review it. It's a big process for us to make an amendment. So we don't encourage you to do amendments willy-nilly. If the minister wants to make an amendment before it's filed, it's a smaller fee. Once the license is issued, if they just change their mind or they caught a spelling error, we do and they haven't been married yet, they haven't filed their certificate yet, there's ways to modify it. But after everything's done, that's the fee.
Does the couple contact you guys directly for that? Or?
Typically, yes.
Okay, and so they'll pay the fee directly
Yes.
to you, and then does that include shipping?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
So what we don't currently have on our site is a page that talks about amendments, but because of this, we know we're going to get a lot more. So we're adding a page under our services link from our website for amendments that explains this, and there will be a link to an Adobe PDF form that they can fill out and print, or they can print and hand fill it out, mail it in, bring it in, but we will have it all available online too.
So the 5-year renewal that we've talked about for a number of years, that will begin on January 1, 2018. So anyone that has an existing license, you will have a 5-year renewal, 5 years from January 1, 2018. Yeah, they will have to renew. Yeah, it's really, Dolly, it's so that we know who's out there. It's really difficult when we don't know who's out there. I think we've gone over this a little bit. We have 4,700 ministers that are on our books. So when we do a meeting like this, we have to send out letters to everybody that doesn't have an email. And so there's a big cost in kind of managing that database. And this, when we talked about this last year and even at the year before, this seemed to be the simplest way to kind of keep our lists after 5 years just, clean, so that we were actually know who is officiating weddings and who isn't and who is gone. Even on this mailing, Carl can talk about that. We got a number of letters back, hundreds of letters back. I don't know how many was the final.
So just by show of hands, who got notice of this meeting from a letter in the mail, not an email, a letter in the mail? Good number of you. And that's because we don't have an email address for you on file from when you originally applied, or there was a typo in your email address that kicked back, what have you, and we removed it because it was no good. So you've heard a number of times throughout this presentation that we're going to be emailing you stuff, and email is going to be our primary vehicle of communication, and we're going to talk about updating your contact stuff in a little bit. But from this meeting alone, we mailed out to over 1,400 officiants. We have close to 4,000 in the database that are active. Well, when we did a When we did a mailing back in 2015, and we finally got the ability to clean this up from when the certificate filing transferred from the recorders to the clerk's office, we had over 1,200 mail pieces returned at that time as being undeliverable because mailing addresses are not being kept up to date. People are moving out of state. We're not being made aware. So a good number of those were set to unknown, and we tried to communicate that to you through an email. So if you were one of those and you go to look yourself up on the Secretary of State's database and you're not there, it's most likely because your status has been set to unknown because you've not updated your mailing address, your contact information with our office. We're going to talk about a bill in a little bit too that also changed that and what we can do to remedy that, but it's crucial that when you guys, and you have to do this by law, you have to keep your information updated with our office. You change organizations, if you move, you get a new mailing address, whatever it is, please keep that information updated. From this mailing, for this meeting alone, after we just got finished dealing with 1,200 of them, we've got over 300 back from this meeting alone that have bad mailing addresses. So that's how things change.
Yeah. So those are the people. We emailed everyone we had email addresses. So those 300, over 300 that came back were only from those people that we mailed, because if we emailed you and your email didn't come back, we assumed that you got the email. So then we sent a letter, a typed letter to everyone that we didn't have email addresses for or whose email bounced back. And from that mailing, we still got over 300 back, and we had just cleaned up the database a few months ago. So we have to have a way to have an accurate database. And that's really what this is designed to do. So did you have another comment?
Pursuant to the last meeting that we had, are you still going to issue identification cards to the officiants?
Coming up.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. There's a lady here, Paula. Is there going to be a charge? No, you need to have the mic.
Is there going to be a charge on the renewal of your license?
There will be. It's currently $25. It would be whatever the fee is to apply to get your Officiant's license. It would be the same. But we kind of talked it through with a lot of you as well as our office. We don't see any reason why we would need a background check. So it would just be whatever the current. It's $25. I don't know that there won't be $25 in 5 years, but $25 every 5 years shouldn't be onerous. Oh, we need to move faster, I'm told. Any other? Okay. This is the last question on this one then.
Have those cards ever been issued?
No.
Thank you.
So what we would do if you don't have an email from us and we send out a mailing and the mail comes back, we currently put it to revoke, and we will send a letter to your licensing organization, whoever that is, saying that we don't know where you are or if you still are an officiant. If they don't respond and no one responds within 90 days of that second letter going out, then your license will be revoked and you would need to reapply for the $25 in the background check. The Officiant training. This is exciting. We've worked with a number of you guys to get the Officiant training. Last time we went over this in more detail. We have a great outline now, I think, that talks about the roles and responsibilities and duties and benefits and all those kinds of things. So we're going to start the Officiant training we're going to do the first and third Wednesday of every month. And our intention is not necessarily for you guys to go through it. You already know what you're doing. This would be for people that are applying as an officiant. They would come here, we would do an hour training, and we would hand them their officiant certificate at that time. So it's really exciting. A number of people have said they want to help with that. There's a sign-up sheet in the back. If you want to help with this training and this program, please join us. I think it's really going to be good. Really, it'll review marriage documents, roles and responsibilities, certificate filing process, responsibilities, I guess, presentation of, and then at the end we would do a formal presentation of the certificate. So I think it's going to elevate it a little bit, which I think is good for all of us.
Will that start in November?
No, it will start, January. Sorry. I typed that. I left off the January. The ID program, again, that's something that we're really excited about. That came from a number of the Officiant's meetings, come independently actually a number of times. And so we're in the process of trying to get the software. We don't think that we need to work with the vendor on that, which really helps. And so we're hoping again to start this in January. If we get the software ahead of time, we might send out a letter and say, let us know if you'd like to come in and get your ID. And the concept is that if you're an active Officiant, it's kind of hard to carry your Officiant papers around with you. So this will give you a card. It will have your, I don't know if it'll have your number on it yet. We'll give them an ID number. Okay. This is phase 2. So this first thing was the phase 1, which is the name, because we have a legal obligation to begin by January 1. There was no deadline on this, and there's no budget for it. So we're going to have to find the budget to be able to program some of the things in that we talked about over the last couple months about being able to automatically link you to, your. So that's a software program. We're not going to be able to do that right away, but we're going to implement those parts of it that we can do without working with the vendor. And so I think it's really exciting. And at the end of, again, that Officiant's meeting, we will have the card set up so that these new Officiants will get their IDs. And then we will have this available during our Officiant meetings, these general meetings. So you don't have to run out and get one. There's no requirement that you have one, but I think it'll make your life easier and it'll, again, elevate the profession. Any questions on that? Great. I think we've gone over why it's so important to keep your contact information up to date. We have forms out in the back if you need to give us an update. The cheapest way for us and the most efficient way is for an accurate email address for you or someone that you know who will give you that information if you don't use email. We still will mail on critical informational meetings like this one, but we don't do mailings very often because they're quite expensive. So just make sure that you keep your information up to date so that we know who's around and who's here and who's working. Any questions on that? It shouldn't be that hard. Hand billers, typically at the end of the meeting, we start talking about hand billers and a lot of complaints about hand billers. We have been working with the Marshal's office to patrol the hand billers more aggressively. We have not had any complaints in the last month, I think, which is really good because we typically get a lot of complaints about how aggressive they are. So, again, we just want to elevate the profession, elevate this experience for couples, and make sure that the hand billers are following the laws.
Just a quick question. Is there a charge for the ID cards when you go to if you want an ID card?
We weren't going to charge you.
You said that's free?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just checking.
Yeah. Yeah, and it might be before. It depends on how fast we can get it, and we would just, maybe even have just call a meeting where you would just come and get an ID or something. So we haven't quite got all the details worked out, but as soon as we can, we will let you know and start doing that. Oops.
Where do you get the formal complaint for the hand biller abuse? Is there a form for that?
No, it's either people that come back into the office and complain to the clerks. I do ask if anyone has any complaints about anything to do a formal written complaint to the clerk's office. So, there's no action we can take if somebody just says, I don't like, someone marrying people on the street. We have to have a formal complaint to move forward.
I was just trying to get his attention.
The brochure rack, this is kind of old news again, but we have moved it by the exit door, and it seems to be functioning better there. More people seem to be taking things.
If you want to put cards in the brochure rack, make sure you let my staff know, because now we have assigned spots for them. There's assigned sizes. So if you are not currently putting brochures in the brochure rack, let us know. It is limited to chapels with chapel licenses, which is fixed facilities according to state law. So only places with fixed facilities, chapel licenses, are able to put brochures in the brochure rack. We talked about non-licensed officiants a while back, and that did pass again in the state legislature. It had to go through a county ordinance that passed last Wednesday. And so now, if you know somebody that is marrying people without an officiant's license, please let me know. We will be better able to track who's actually licensed and who's not when they file, when we have all this other data in place. And so, we do want to make sure that when couples are married, they're married appropriately. We have two marriage certificates that we've held for a year because there was information on them that made it not legal, right? And so we tried to contact the officiant, we tried to contact the couple. Well, of course, neither of those officiants were licensed. One married him in California, one married him before the license was issued. So the couple may or may not be married. They're in legal jeopardy. And again, because we don't know who these people are and we have no way to contact them and they don't respond, we have no way of protecting those couples. So that's what it's designed for, to make sure that the officiants do have officiants' licenses and that they do it properly. That's it for me. What do you guys? Any other questions? And we're really close to 10:30. Again, thank you all for coming. I appreciate you taking the time. Let me get that and then. Oh, one more thing. I'm supposed to remind me about. Oh, how often would, in general, unless we have something specific like this, quarterly meetings? Raise your hand if quarterly meetings is what you'd like. Yes? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Lynn. Wanted to find out, last time meeting you guys said you had a list that you could go on your site of the current licensed officiants. Do you guys still have that? Okay.
Send that to the Secretary of State.
Okay. I spoke with Carl last time, and I had told him that our facility